I want to do some reminiscing here. I'm going to try and I'm sorry I'm ruining everything with the reminiscing of today because we're going to try and get Jimmy Johnson and Edgerrin James because I want to close a chapter in University of Miami football as Bobby Bowden passes away. And I don't think in this region, this part of the country, that is a passing that should go quietly just because he's an old person and he was sick. We are burying a glorious, nostalgic time in South Florida.
Do you feel like it went quietly? I mean, it was everywhere yesterday.
I'm saying when obituaries happen sometimes with the old, it is something that we can move away from it very quickly, or the sports talk of the day, whatever it is, USA winning a team medal, it can get in the way of the old guy dying. Right. And this is an old guy who was the rare old guy. Grandfather all our lives, it felt like, who was the head of the team that Miami hated and competed most against at the height of the best college football, and yet was beloved by all. That's a hard one. You could respect Nick Saban all you like, but there ain't a whole lot of beloved by all there.
Right.
Charming, folksy, leader of a team, and as Mike said earlier, a man that just, you're watching him in his way, and you're like, yeah, he's going to care about my kids. I want to send that guy. I want to send my son to go play with that man because he seems like he's about the right things. He's trying to do the right things, and he built a monster in a school that had no right ever to be that kind of monster. When you're talking about going up against Penn State and Ohio State and all the schools that had dominated that sport, a school that had no right was a titan, a beloved titan. I don't know. I can't say this, I don't think, about anybody. Like, I can't say it about Bear Bryant. And you can respect success. You can respect excellence. But somebody that you just look at and like, man, that he did it right. He was kind. He was good. He was a good person, charming, tried to live, God-fearing life, but tried to do the right things.
He did it differently. It wasn't a dictatorship. He wasn't a yeller. He wasn't a screamer. I thought the most interesting thing to me about the coverage yesterday was to hear guys like Warwick Dunn or Charlie Ward or others saying, hey, when I met him, I just wanted to go play for him. I wanted to learn from him. And then once I got there, I didn't want to lose because of him. And that was it. So the players knew, and I think their families knew, that this guy really cared about you, really loved you, was not going to scream and yell at your kid when he's away from you for 4 years. He's going to take care of you the way the parents kind of took care of their own kids.
Couldn't.
Yes.
It couldn't. It's impossible.
Right.
That age, that many kids. Like there was stuff that happened at FSU that shouldn't be glossed over. There was stuff that happened at FSU that felt a little soul-selling and immoral beyond Free Shoes University. But I would not put the responsibility of everything happening at a program on one. I'm willing to extend a grandfather from another time, that not a bit of an exoneration from total responsibility on being able to govern 100 kids.
It's a belief that, in your heart of hearts, that I think Bobby Bowden was aspiring to be good and fundamentally decent. And there was an authentic humility about him too, that I think we've seen in the modern age Dabo can't pull off. Heck, his rival at Florida, Steve Spurrier, certainly couldn't pull that off.
Give me second place on, because Bear Bryant, all these guys, college football charming, not only excellent, but it's sort of what they said about Conan O'Brien when his show went off the air for the last time after a 3-decade run across the media. They said it's not just that he was funny or inventive or different. It's that he was kind, as Jay Leno was not seen as that. And there was some cutthroat stuff going on. I can't think off the top of my head, second place, charming, excellent college football where you associate, you don't have to be an asshole in order to win. You can do it another way.
Well, this one's going to be problematic, but I think Les Miles was probably closest. And then look what happened. Threw that in your laps.
That never, that's a dead fish.
Mike.
And thank you. Yes.
But he is the best comp, no.
Okay, but you can't imagine Bobby Bowden being lecherous on campus. It's a little hard to imagine Bobby Bowden getting got by Me Too.
Wait, we're not going to have that show today. We certainly aren't.
Too soon.
Okay, because I already hear people spitballing, well, is it really that hard to envision? We're not doing that today. All right, guys? A legend passed away, and we're going to give it proper respect.
Were you wounded by it?
Was I wounded by Bobby Bowden passing away? Yes, I was prepared for it because, I mean, it wasn't but a couple of weeks ago that we got the news that his condition was terminal. But yeah, super sad. It reminds me of a time. It reminds me how much I shook a fist as a little kid at the TV screen. Let me ask you a question, though. This show that we're doing right now. When I was a little kid, I used to listen to Hank Goldberg. And when he would go to break, he would tease that, hey, we got Gil Brandt and Beano Cook coming up next. And I was like, who the hell are these people? Are we doing that now?
We are doing
Is
that
there a
show
little
right
kid
now.
that's like me that's like, who is Bobby Bowden?
We're doing that show now, and I'm going to leave it behind in a second. But I want to tell you a couple of Jimmy Johnson stories. But Fancy Lad, I'm just a man, wanted to get in here.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that Bobby Bowden, I was sad, and it was only because of this show, right? Like, the heated rivalries between Miami and Florida State weren't really around when I became a University of Miami fan as such. And so this show kind of made him immensely likable. Like, I remember all his interviews and just how fun and you having a great time with him and just how fun-loving he was as a kind of late-in-life ex-coach.
I wanted to put the context around this, though, as we're talking about the excellence of these three individuals that we're celebrating in South Florida for resuscitating and reviving a ancient time in sports when our show was falling in love with local sports. All of us were those Miami Florida State games for me. I don't know about you guys, but they sort of introduced me. Oh, sports can be hugely fun. I'm in college, the student section, teams never lose in a game, a home game the entire time I'm there. This is my introduction to sports allegiances. I go to the school. I'm a journalist at the school. I belong to something.
I went to in the Orange Bowl latter stages. Brock Berlin was a quarterback. There was a great overtime game between Miami and FSU, and it's not even remembered as one of the greats in the series just because of all the kicks and how many great games this series has had. And Bobby Bowden was on that sideline, and I'm just so happy I have that memory. It's an experience that I can always tap into. And I went to the Orange Bowl for plenty of games, but that was the only time I was there for Miami FSU. And you could feel the presence in that building of how important that time was.
I want to explain to you the man who died, though, and the man who went to the Hall of Fame and their journeys, because they're responsible for raising a whole bunch of kids who grew to love sports because of how great everything, how intense all of the things around them were happening.
Not just in South Florida, by the way. I've told you this before, because in the Northeast where I grew up, college football is not a big deal. And so what you ended up rooting for and watching were those national games. It was Canes, it was Florida State, it was Notre Dame, but mostly for me, it was the Hurricanes and Florida State.
But this is what happened, Stugotz, and this is why I want to talk about this today. Whatever bleep you feel off of Miami's obnoxious fan base, whatever bleep you was on steroids during Heat, Dwayne Wade, whatever bleep you feel in the rest of Florida that's all screwed up, looks down at Miami, super brown, is like, what's wrong with you people? Like, what's the matter with all of that down there? These people made Miami a national team, not a regional team. They took college football, and the intensity of all those things was so crazy that Jimmy Johnson, playing against Notre Dame, Catholics versus convicts, they were calling him pork-faced Satan on T-shirts. And it's religion versus Miami thug South. Can't behave by the rules. Gang life in Los Angeles is adopting Miami as a football team because it's so rebellious. Jimmy Johnson is the guy who says we will taunt, we will showboat, we will celebrate. It just, all the swagger of that. The school president comes down on his head. No, we want to be Harvard of the South. I don't want all this taunting and stuff. Jimmy Johnson says publicly the next player that taunts will be benched. Safety for the University of Miami that week. Charles Farms goes to a cemetery, takes pictures with a black shirt because he's in mourning for the other team, and is wearing a shirt that reads "Shut up, bitch," and Jimmy Johnson makes him the captain. So you got a fight with the university academics, and that's stuff from the huddle. It's getting too close to the library. Jimmy Johnson, that's the happiest time in his life. The us against them from there in Miami was the happiest time in his football life. He goes to the pros, has a lot of success, but he always misses that time in Miami, that time going up against Bobby Bowden. Says his ego demanded that he go test himself in the pros. But if he had to do it over again, and if absent that, probably would have just tried to stay at Miami and do the Bowden things. Hates the man he was as a professional coach. Now, I want you to follow the journey because Bowden seemed happy the entire time. Jimmy Johnson was miserable everywhere in the storm of birthing college football championships, Dallas Cowboys, Jerry Jones, making the Dallas Cowboys more relevant than they deserve to be 30 years later because of they've won like 2 playoff games. But those dudes fighting at the top of sports, Jimmy Johnson and Jerry Jones, ego. Jimmy Johnson hated himself. Looks back in retirement at that guy and makes a vomiting sound because he's like, that guy went to his mother's funeral, looks into her coffin, is like, I've been living life all wrong. I need to quit the Dolphins. I need to tell my sons I love them. One of my sons is doing a lot of addiction work now, but he's got problems, and it's because I haven't been there. I need to dedicate myself to family. Most changed man I've ever seen across adulthood in sports. From mercenary, bleep off, don't care what you think while I'm the coach of the Cowboys, don't care what you think when I'm the coach of the Hurricanes, to softened. I need to love people the rest of my life because the owner who let me go in Miami, Wayne Huizenga, was always sending me notes, QTL, quality time left, sending me jet skis, QTL, you only have so much time left. And Bobby Bowden's clock expires, and Jimmy Johnson makes the emotional journey through age, Stugotz, of looking back on his life and hating the excellent champion that he was, while looking into his mom's coffin and saying, I've lived life all wrong. And now he's on a boat, jet skis all the time. And you see him, I couldn't have imagined Jimmy Johnson crying. Like, you see him deeply emotional with Terry Bradshaw about getting into the Hall of Fame because all of his all of those fights, all of that unhappiness as he gets into a time in his life where he's more tranquil, more grateful, and thinking about his mortality as Bobby Bowden dies, that he would get that honor and be able to cherish it with loved ones at a time that he's changed, right? Emotionally open, not a general dictator asshole who thought he had to be a general dictator asshole in order to have the success.
And Howard Schnellenberger passes away. Bobby Bowden now. Yeah, it's a time for a reflection for Jimmy Johnson. I'm sure all those feelings are coming back tenfold as he gets enshrined.
And yet he's up there making that speech, and all I'm thinking to myself is, man, I wish he would coach again. I mean, that's what I was thinking to myself.
Really? You want to bring
coach
him?
the U?
Yes. He was so good.
That was a thing for one hot minute. Can we talk Jimmy Johnson to come back into the U?
I bet he's had some pretty good offers the last 15 years. He's had pretty good offers. I've got to ask him about that. We got to get him on.
Wasn't the Spanos family like perpetually offering him like whatever you want?
Are we alienating the entire audience by talking?